But they listen, though, which is a groovy thing. When the audience is quiet while you're playing, that's really great. That means they're listening.
Jimi Hendrix is often remembered as the gentle mystic with a strat that could sob, roar, and melt reality. But the mellow smile hit a competitor who measured everything by one merciless standard: truth in playing. If a band felt manufactured, if a scene rewarded shortcuts, if crowds cheered the brand instead of the music, he took it personally.
Like play to myself in the room or before we go on stage or something like this, or whenever
Not with public feuds or headline-grabbing beefs, but with a hard inner edge that demanded proof. Tonight, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on 6 acts that collided with Hendrix's code, some by choice, some by accident, and how those clashes exposed the pressures, jealousies, and illusions of late 60s rock. You'll see the teen idol machine, the poet-philosophers, the power trio arms race, and the swagger factory that rewrote stadium rules. Think you know the peaceful Hendrix? Watch how the calm breaks when music turns into marketing. And just when you think the story is set, the final comparison flips the lesson on its head. Because talent doesn't always win the easy way. And that's exactly why Hendrix matters. Number 6. The Monkees. On paper, pairing Hendrix with the Monkees looked like a publicity masterstroke. In the flesh, it was a collision. Teen crowds who adored TV charm wanted bubblegum hooks, not a guitarist detonating chords like fireworks. He'd step out, paint the air with feedback and bends, and hear the chant for Davy and Mickey crest over the monitors. Booing stung, but the deeper bruise was philosophical. Fame manufactured on a studio lot was outshouting years of woodshedding. Hendrix didn't despise the guys. He disliked the machine that crowned entertainers as bands and treated virtuosity like a party foul. Within days, he pulled the plug, not in defeat, but in self-defense. He understood the wrong room can make the right music sound like noise. The episode sharpened his code. If hype could fill arenas, art had to answer with proof. In the studio, he layered tones until the song breathed, then tore it open with a solo that felt like a weather event. On stage, he learned to build the on-ramp. Start with a riff you could hum, then open the trapdoor into the storm. The Monkees tour wasn't a scandal. It was a calibration. It taught him to choose spaces where risk had value, where an audience came to be moved, not only entertained. And the universe signaled back. Underground FM embraced him. Crowds locked, and "Are you experienced?" stopped being a question. That's the paradox this chapter exposes. The Monkees were good at what they were built to do: sell harmless thrill. Hendrix was built for the voltage those thrills avoided. Put them on the same bill and everybody loses. The pop fans get bewildered by a meteor shower, and meteor looks like a problem instead of a miracle. Walk away, and the miracle finds its night sky. He did, and it did. Number 5. The Dave Clark 5. The Dave Clark 5 were the poster boys for tight, explosive, hook-first British beat. Nothing wrong with that, until hook-first becomes the rule. For a player like Hendrix, their bulletproof formulas, and the way TV loved those formulas, stood for something bigger. What happens when simple becomes a ceiling? The stomp drums, chant-ready choruses, and brass stabs were engineered to grab a room in 10 seconds. Meanwhile, Hendrix was building moments that unfolded in layers. Tones stacked like scaffolding. Feedback shaped into punctuation. Solos that felt less like recitals and more like weather systems rolling in. The system rewarded the quick hit. He chased the slow burn revelation. That imbalance grated, not as a personal grudge against the band, but as a philosophical fight with the scoreboard. If a 3-chord blast wins airtime 10 times out of 10, where do the rule breakers go to be heard? His answer showed up in the studio. Parts that inhale and exhale. Choruses that don't just land, but bloom. Bridges that rewire the song mid-flight. He wasn't trying to out-catchy the Dave Clark 5. He was trying to make the argument obsolete. Prove that a track could be a living organism, not just a chant with a backbeat. Over time, the audience adjusted its ears. Underground FM cracked open. College crowds leaned in. Critics started hearing the architecture inside the fire. The Dave Clark 5 kept filling dance floors. Hendrix kept expanding the floor itself, pushing the walls farther out so risk could breathe. That's the real tension here. Convenience versus discovery. One sells immediately. The other changes what selling even means. And once you've stood in a room where a single bent note seems to tilt the air, you don't forget it. Predictability still wins charts, but the future always belongs to the songs that refuse to sit still. Number 4. Herman's Hermits. Clean-cut harmonies. Cheerful melodies. A smile you could set your watch by. In mid-60s America, Herman's Hermits became the shorthand for safe excitement. A radio-friendly sparkle that parents tolerated and teens could blast without starting a family argument. To Jimmy, that was exactly the problem, not because sweetness is a sin, but because calling this rock flattened everything he believed the music could do. He heard bright tunes with tidy endings, where he chased tones that teetered on the edge, blues turns that bruised the chord, and feedback that felt like a streetlight flickering before a storm. The Hermits weren't villains. They were a symptom of a marketplace that preferred sherbet to spice, a scene where packaging outran risk. If rebellion arrived ironed and camera-ready, who would fund the messy experiments that actually move sound forward? Hendrix didn't write essays about it. He answered with voltage. He stacked darker blues over luminous psychedelia, pushed wah pedal sighs until they sounded like sirens bending around a corner, and carved solos that started pretty and then stepped into the unknown. Radio kept crowning neat sing-alongs. He made records that argued for wonder, and a different audience tuned in. Late-night FM heads, campus stations, kids who wanted their music to change the room, not decorate it. The chart still had space for sunny hooks, but the ground began to shift. Suddenly, safe felt small, and strange felt necessary. That's the real tension here. Herman's Hermits proved pop could make rock polite. Hendrix refused the invitation. He wasn't anti-melody. His best riffs stick like lightning scars. But he demanded stakes. If a song didn't risk something, why play it loud? In that quiet, stubborn standard, you can hear the future picking up its guitar. Number 3. The Doors. On stage, the Doors sold mystery. Off stage, Hendrix hunted it. That difference mattered. Where Jim Morrison framed danger in poetry and myth, Hendrix tried to capture the voltage itself. The note that wobbles like a blade. The chord that glows and collapses into noise. The feedback that feels like a storm rolling through the floorboards. Respect? Absolutely. Alignment? Not quite. Hendrix distrusted any path where ideas outpaced impact. If a band promised transcendence, he believed you should hear it in the air, not just read it in a liner note. The friction crystallized in a notorious late-night jam at New York's Scene Club in '68. Morrison was wrecked, the room was loud, and the tape, circulating for years under bootleg titles, captures chaos in real time. Hendrix keeps pulling phrases out of the fire, bending the mess back toward pitch, shaping pockets where the groove can breathe. Morrison stumbles into the mic like a ghost looking for a body. It's messy, human, a little tragic, and weirdly revealing. Hendrix isn't offended, he's focused. He treats the moment like a test. Can sound alone pull the room into meaning? That's the core divide. The Doors curated atmosphere. Shadowy keys, ritual drums, a baritone sermon. Hendrix built pressure until the molecules in the room moved. When critics compared them as co-pilots of the psychedelic moment, he didn't argue with words. He reached for the amp. He showed what revelation feels like when wood, wire, and electricity conspire at the edge of control. So the Doors were both kin and foil. Kin because they chased the same horizon. Foil because they trusted symbols as much as sweat. In that gap, Hendrix planted his flag. Fewer slogans, more shockwaves. And the next chapter would demand even sharper proof. Number 2. Cream, this rivalry wasn't born from dislike. It was forged from respect, sharpened into urgency. Cream, Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker were a power trio with bite, a band that could turn a 12-bar into a knife fight. When Hendrix landed in London and asked to sit in, the room didn't brace for politeness. It braced for weather. He tore through Killing Floor at a tempo that felt like an engine over redline, notes snapping into place while the tone bloomed and scorched at once. Whether the famous backstage line is pristine truth or legend polished by time hardly matters. The effect did. Every player in that scene recalibrated. Suddenly, good wasn't enough. Prepared wasn't enough. You had to be dangerous. For Hendrix, Cream were the rare mirror that talks back. Clapton's phrasing had authority. Bruce's lines prowled. Baker detonated on the upbeats. That pressure made Hendrix refine the things only he could do. The liquid slurs that slide between pitches. The feedback sculpted as architecture. The sense that the solo is not decoration, but narrative. Listen after that encounter, and you hear the arms race on both sides. Cream compress and explode. Tight riff. Sudden horizon. Hendrix layers rhythm parts like stained glass, then shatters them with a wah scream to see which colors survive. It isn't point scoring. It's metallurgy. Heat, strike, quench, repeat. The audience felt it too. Those clubs turned into laboratories where risk was the ticket price. Applause came late because people were catching up, processing lines that didn't resolve the way pop expected. And that was the gift. Cream forced Hendrix to project beyond shock value, to make the chaos intelligible, to command a room that already knew every trick. After you win those rooms, TV-built acts stop being opponents. They're spectators. Cream didn't make Hendrix angry. They made him inevitable. Number 1. The Rolling Stones. This is the uncomfortable chapter because the Stones embodied a truth Hendrix could never ignore. In rock, image can sprint where pure skill sometimes jogs. They had riffs you could hum after one spin, a frontman who telegraphed danger with a grin, and a rhythm section built for stadium heartbeat. Hendrix had something rarer and riskier. Sorcery at arm's length, beautiful and volatile, occasionally too advanced for hallway speakers and AM radio. The tension wasn't personal. Circles overlapped, respect was real, and he knew their grind. The ache lived in the scoreboard. The Stones proved that mid-tempo menace and charismatic swagger could conquer any venue on earth. Hendrix learned that virtuosity alone doesn't rule the room. You need translation, an entry ramp, a phrase the crowd can grab before you launch them into the stratosphere. He never diluted the message. Instead, he tightened the doorways into it. Leaner motifs, hooks that caught like flint, then the sky-tearing improvisations for anyone ready to go further. The comparison stung because it was honest. The Stones built a global machine. Hendrix was building a universe. Their success pressed him toward clarity without sanding off the edges. His success reminded them, and everyone else, what mystery sounds like when the molecules in a room start to move. Call it rivalry if you want. It's sharper than that. A live demonstration that rock can win by spectacle or by alchemy, by a chorus everyone can shout, or by a single bent note that feels like a revelation. Two different empires, two different sources of gravity, both bending culture. The Stones taught mass. Hendrix taught awe, and that lesson, uncomfortable as it was, helped turn his vision from cult electricity into undeniable history. Hendrix didn't waste time on press wars. His rebuttals were pressed into vinyl and burned into stage floors. The Monkees' Mismatch taught him to choose his rooms. The Dave Clark 5 and Herman's Hermits reminded him why rules exist to be violated. The Doors drew a line between talk and voltage. Cream gave him a mirror that fought back. And the Stones, well, they made him admit that greatness needs an on-ramp. Did he hate these bands? Some nights he probably felt that fire. Most nights, the target was bigger. Any system that rewards the copy over the spark. That's why the story still stings. Because every era has its Monkees and its Stones, its poets and its power trios, its formulas and its freaks. And every era needs a Hendrix to keep the ceiling breaking, the circuits humming, and the music telling the truth. even when the truth is hard to sell.